The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 27th of May. And it's episode 159 here on NOK Network, the video news podcast being reported in the mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer for Kirkland Lake, Ontario, for the awesome intro track. Originally recorded by the Moody Blues with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Tara Simpson, along with the one and only Bufo Alvarius, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And, well, that sounds like great fun. Park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad.
Well, I don't like that toad. Oh, man. I had this weird dream the other day when Tommy and I were laying in bed and just sleeping next to each other, and all these toads were jumping on us. And he kept on telling me, don't like the toads, don't like the toads.
Yeah, don't lick the toads. You don't know where that toad's been and how much DMT it's going to stick on that tongue of yours. Could be in for a wild ride, and that might not be what you signed up for.
Right. And there's so much research they got to do on proper whatnot still and whatnot. And that throws us right into our first article on prweb.com. It states, Texas launches largest publicly funded psychedelic research initiative in history with $50 million investment in ibogaine. This is news provided by Texas Ibogaine Initiative.
Yeah, so this is a neat article, especially being that Texas just got rid of THC, and it's now a crime to possess it in Texas. But yet we're swinging over to psychedelics in Texas. So just very interesting. Texas became the first state in the nation to invest in drug development trials for ibogaine, launching the largest publicly funded psychedelic research initiative in history, and offering new hope for those suffering from substance use, trauma, and brain injury. With the passage of House Bill 3717, authored by State Representative Cody Harris, Republican, Palestine, and Senate Bill 2308, sponsored by State Senator Tan Parker, Republican, Flower Mound, Texas now leads the country and the world in psychedelic research investment. This is the largest publicly funded research initiative ever launched by any government worldwide. Ibogaine is the Manhattan Project of our time. Brian Hubbard, Executive Director of the American Ibogaine Initiative and architect and of the legislation said, "We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the fabric of this country. And mighty Texas, in all its strength and independence, is the first state to stand up and lead a revolution in the treatment of trauma and addiction." Ibogaine is a psychoactive alkaloid derived from Western African botanical sources. Studies have shown that a single treatment can significantly interrupt substance dependence, reduce trauma symptoms, and promote neurological repair. Yet in the US, ibogaine remains Schedule I drug, blocking formal research for decades. Thousands of Americans, particularly veterans and first responders, have been forced to seek out treatment abroad or go without. The opioid crisis has left too many families shattered and too many veterans without answers. House Bill sponsor Representative Cody Harris said, "I'm proud that Texas dared to stand up and say, we're not going to wait for permission. We're making history. We will lead, innovate, and fight for those who have been left behind. Lives are on the line, and ibogaine has the potential to save them." The legislation ensures that Texas retains the long-term benefits of the research it funds, instead handing over value to pharmaceutical companies. The bill keeps the research development process rooted in Texas, ensuring economic, scientific, and therapeutic returns remain in the state. Wow, that's neat.
It is. The initiative was originally sparked in Kentucky, where Hubbard, then serving as chair of the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission, proposed using state opioid settlement funds for ibogaine research. Political opposition ultimately blocked that plan, prompting former Texas Governor Rick Perry to step in. I've heard the story, studied the research, and looked these veterans and warfighters in the eye. Men who came back from ibogaine treatment in Mexico, healed, and finally hope, Perry said. Ibogaine gave them peace and nothing else could. This medicine has potential to free people from the grips of addiction, and anecdotal evidence suggests it may help with neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis. You'd have to work hard to ignore what this medicine can do, and I won't. This is the most important work I've ever done, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure ibogaine gets the attention and research it deserves. Wow. Together, Hubbard and Perry launched the Texas Ibogaine Initiative, bringing veterans, scientists, advocates, and philanthropists with the shared goal to create a path for FDA-approved research in the United States. Texas saw the data, listened to the voices, and acted when others wouldn't. Logan Davison, Executive Director, Texas, for greater mental health. And this is how charge begins, not in theory, but in action. To lead awareness and reshape narrative around psychedelic use, an initiative brought on Anna Claire Stapleton, a multi-winning former CNN conflict journalist and military spouse. I've spent my career telling hard stories, war trauma, humanitarian disaster, but ibogaine revealed something rarely encountered in this work, lasting hope, Stapleton, and people in the grips of addiction finding sobriety, people carrying the weight of war finding peace. These testimonies can change perception, shape policy, and save lives. We saw it happen in Texas since lawmakers heard these stories as healing. As a journalist, as a storyteller, I believe this is one of the most important health stories of our time. The world needs to know about ibogaine. Huh, cool.
Yeah, veterans were central to the passage of this bill. Organizations like Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions participated in a day of action at the Texas Capitol, bringing a group of veterans directly into lawmakers' offices to share their personal experiences of healing through ibogaine. A private screening of the documentary In Waves and War offered legislators a powerful firsthand look at the life or death stakes behind this issue. Once lawmakers heard these stories, they became impossible to ignore. One of the most impactful veteran voices was Texas native Navy Cross and Purple Heart recipient Marcus Luttrell, who testified before both the House and Senate about his healing journey. After I was injured, opioids got their hooks into me, and no matter what I tried, I couldn't let go of the pain and the baggage I was carrying from my life as a warfighter. Luttrell said, "Ibogaine helped me lay it all down, everything that's prohibited me from being the best version of myself. I have completely shut out of my life thanks to Ibogaine. It helped me come back stronger as a father, husband, and a human being. Texas has always taken care of me, and now it's stepping up again to take care of all Texans who are suffering. That's real leadership." The initiative also gained the support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and House Speaker Dustin Burrows, who helped ensure the legislation was fully funded before the session closed. Texas will be the first state in the country to recognize Ibogaine for a study. Speaker Burrows and I have agreed to invest an unprecedented $50 million in matching grants to begin the Ibogaine trials, said the Lieutenant Governor, and he posted that to X. The $50 million appropriation will help fund FDA-approved clinical trials of Ibogaine in partnership with a drug developer who will assume all financial risk and regulatory responsibility for advancing the treatments through the clinical trial process. Texas retains a financial stake in any future dividends from the successful drug development, which could be used to help fund access to Ibogaine treatment for Texans in need. Since Perry and Hubbard appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience earlier this year to discuss the initiative, state leaders nationwide have asked how to bring Ibogaine research to their communities. In April, representatives from 15 states convened for the inaugural Aspen Ibogaine meeting, organized in partnership with the Reed Foundation to begin developing a collaborative multi-state research framework. A second meeting is planned for early November, with additional states expected to attend and explore opportunities to pool their research or their resources and replicate trials and work together to address the national crisis. With this legislation, Texas has taken a stand not just for science, but for every person who's been at the end of hope. Well, that's really cool. That's super cool.
It is, and it comes unexpectedly because, like you said, it's Texas.
Right. They just got rid of legal THC in Texas. It's now against the law. So it's kind of a step backwards in treatment options for, opioid substitutes, which they're now using Ibogaine to study to get people off of opioids.
Yeah. Right.
Makes sense.
The studies with cannabis already were proven. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they mentioned Colorado in there, and our next article comes out of Colorado, out of the AspenTimes.com. And the Aspen Times states from Colin Suzinski. It states former Aspen City Council member to open psychedelic healing center. Wow, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so this was written by Colin Suzinski on May 25th of this year. And Sanctum, the Psychedelic Healing Center that former Aspen City Council member Skippy Mazzero is opening in the middle of June, will be the first healing center of its kind in Aspen. In fact, it will be one of very few of its kind in Colorado, licensed to administer psilocybin, the active drug in psychedelic mushrooms to patients. Mazzaro, who was an Aspen City Council member from 2019 to 2023, saw the writing on the wall when the Food and Drug Administration began researching the potential benefit of psilocybin use and expressed as much during his time on the board. I stood up at every city council meeting one day, just kind of on the fly, and said, the FDA is working on this, he said. I don't think we should wait. I think we should figure out a way to make this available to our citizens now. He found that the psychedelic healing was impactful for him personally, to be able to accelerate his own healing and ability to recreate the world. Oh, to relate to the world. I was like, what is he recreating? I had a very significant experience in 2019. It was my first therapeutic psychedelic experience, said Mazzaro. I always say it wasn't the answer. It wasn't a light switch that went from sick to well, but it was a significant contributory accelerator to my own healing. The Psychedelic Center will be operating with full legal permission from the state of Colorado. After going through a long process, he received permission and licensing required from the state. Now he's just waiting on state-approved testing of his center's mushrooms before they can begin operation. And that's good that they're doing testing, because we know that makes a difference.
It is. Oh, shit. Where are we?
The Natural Health Medicine Act.
Oh, yeah. The Natural Health Medicine Act of 2022 is what makes this all possible. In 2022, a ballot question was put to Colorado voters asking whether citizens should be allowed to use psychedelics for their own personal consumptions, as well as whether healing centers should be allowed to operate professional psychedelic treatment. Research at the time was beginning to suggest that people with depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other mental health struggles could reap immense benefit from controlled therapeutic administration of psilocybin. That body of research has grown since 2022, with the Department for Veterans Affairs now funding research into the chemical. Sanctum will be operating out of Aspen City, a studio space that offers yoga classes, acupuncture, massage, and other wellness services. The space offers clients a secluded private area where they can experience the psychedelic treatment with the guidance of facilitators who are licensed in the state of Colorado to lead the session. To become a facilitator, you have to go through a 140-hour didactic training program that happens through a state-approved psychedelic training program, said Mazzaro of the long licensing process. He will be one of many facilitators working at Sanctum Facility. It will be offering in treatment in one-on-one sessions, usually with repeat visits, to prepare clients for the psychedelic experience. The whole process can take anywhere from several days to weeks or even months, depending on individual clients and requests. There will be group sessions available for couples or larger groups. All sessions will be available in a wide range of formats that will vary in cost, starting at $3,000. There's a rarely day walk around town where I don't pass someone on the street who maybe no one else knows, but I know that their life has either been saved or changed significantly through the use of these methods. Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool that they're gonna start doing that in Colorado now.
$3,000, is that a month?
Or no, I think that's a session. By the sounds of it, I don't think it's like you get X number of days. I think that's per treatment. which is kind of expensive. I'm not going to lie. I mean, most people don't have $20,000 kicking around to go to a treatment center, let alone to go on vacation or anything else right now.
Hey,
But
I don't even like spending a couple $1,000s to talk to my psychiatrist on what makes me happy, let alone the dude giving me mushrooms.
right, exactly. That's pretty expensive. I'm really hoping we'll see a day where, benefit plans will pick up the cost of these places and the cost will come down because there'll be more access, right? Obviously, the more the market is flooded with these centers, the better the cost is going to become because it's no longer, a niche market where they can charge whatever they want. We should see more affordable access for patients.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm hoping that. Well, I'm looking forward to reading more about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Our next article comes out of Spokesman. Spokesman. Yep, spokesman.com. And the spokesman says Spokane Psychedelic Church gets first approval of its kind from DEA to possess ayahuasca. This is big news. Holy shit. This is by Todd Steffens.
Yeah, so this is interesting. A Spokane congregation has won a first of its kind federal approval to possess and partake in the powerful hallucinogenic drug ayahuasca that is central to its religious practice. It's a huge relief because we have so many things that we've been waiting for approval to happen, said Connor Mize, who leads the Church of Gaia in Spokane. It's helped us legally operate in our full form because without complete approval, we can't even get started. Despite there being many ayahuasca churches in the United States, only a handful may legally possess the drug, which is made from brewing together two native plants in the Amazon rainforest. Those churches earned this right by successfully suing the DEA, arguing the seizures of their sacrament violated their religious rights and thus was in contradiction of the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act. After repeatedly losing in court, the DEA tried something different. It developed a new process in 2009 that gave churches the opportunity to apply for an exemption from the Controlled Substances Act, given that their sacrament will be stored securely and not a risk of recreational use. The Church of Gaia announced last year it anticipated being the first church to earn the legal right to possess ayahuasca through the DEA's application process rather than a protracted and expensive court fight. On Friday, the approval arrived. A spokesperson for the DEA said the agency does not generally disclose information on their applicants seeking exemptions from federal law, but it did verify that the Church of Gaia was among only a few churches that had or were nearing such approval. At ayahuasca ceremonies, congregants consume the bitter hallucinogenic tea in a dark room while others chant. Congregants should expect that what is politely called a purge, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea are common. He has been traveling to Peru for the past few years to participate in the ceremonies. Ayahuasca is widely consumed by different indigenous communities of South America as a religious sacrament. But in America, ayahuasca is classified a Schedule I illegal drug.
In efforts to reach a deal with the DAA, the church is represented by Terrapin Legal, a law firm based in Spokane, led by Taylor Lloyden, who said unprecedented agreement has opened doors for other churches. Interest in the DAA's petition process has absolutely increased following the Church of Gaia's exemption, she said. It came together through quiet persistence from Gaia's leadership, the support of indigenous elders, thoughtful legal guidance, and a firm commitment to ethical practice. We feel deeply honored and grateful to have supported Gaia through this process. Lloyden has taken Terrapin Legal from its founder, Spokane County Public Defender Pat Donahue, who served as lead counsel of the movement for years. I'm grateful there is a pathway forward for recognition of these organizations. It took generations to get here, Donahue said. It took a lot of collaboration with the DAA to understand each other and to reach an agreement. But Connor is the one who took the risk when everybody told him not to. He submitted the petition when others thought it was an impossible route through. So the Church of Gaia has been working with the DEA for roughly 3 years to agree on terms. The church has yet performed any ceremonies or possess ayahuasca on American soil. Now that the church has been earned legality, members can begin the next steps to build their religious sanctuary, and they have 50 acres in North Spokane to put it on. Oh, wow.
Wow, eh? Yeah, divine construction. Similar to other religious nonprofits, the Church of Gaia is governed by a board of directors responsible for the church's operation and legal compliance. So far, it has worked with members to draft core beliefs, agree on ethical guidelines, and safety protocols for participants of the ceremonies. But a vital next step is to bring in the experts. To ensure the Church of Gaia is performing ceremonies the traditional way, they will be joined by the ceremonial leaders of the Shibo Canibo people, a community in Peru that has historically performed the ritualistic consumption of ayahuasca. Ceremonies will be held at a nondescript Spokane location roughly once a month with Shipo Konibo leaders present, Maya said. Our first priority is getting visas for the Shipo so they can start helping us run these ceremonies and get them connected with our community that has been patiently waiting to meet them for a very, very long time, Maya said. When we get them over here is when we really get started. Two Shipo Konibo leaders have agreed to be the leaders of the Church of Gaia. Tito Asmerfren Valera is an 86-year-old elder of the community who has worked with ayahuasca since he was 25. Valera's grandson, Teddy Romania Rodriguez, has studied under his grandfather since the age of 14. The first time he consumed ayahuasca, he was 12 years old. According to Rodriguez, his work is in high demand as people from around the world wish to consume ayahuasca the traditional way. He has recently been to Europe. I feel that I am ready to help a lot of people, both locally and abroad. I am sure that ayahuasca will help a lot of them, Rodriguez said. This is why I'm motivated to go to the United States and help the Church of Gaia. I am sure that we will be the light in the world. Mize intends to train under the Shibo Kanibo leaders to prepare himself to be a ceremonial leader. Rodriguez said he supports such non-Indigenous leaders because he believes the spiritual benefits of ayahuasca should not be isolated to the Amazonia. Wow, that's neat.
It is. And this path of spirituality is not meanness, it's compatible and open to all. That is why we guide them so that they can too learn and help many people, he said. According to Mize, the inclusion of Shipibo Kanibo people sets the Church of Gaia apart from many American movements. South American leaders have always wanted to be a part of the ayahuasca space in the United States because a lot of churches don't include the voice of the indigenous people who started it all, Mike said. So why don't we make it happen? The structure on the North Spokane property will resemble those found in South American communities. In Peru, we do everything in the Melico, the round ceremonial building. Everybody has their own sleeping space, and a lot of times after the ceremony, people just kind of fall asleep anyway, he said. It really brings the community together, which I like, and I think that it will stay the same for years. The Malaco is a yurt style building roughly 30 feet in diameter, according to my Maloka. Much of the property will remain as it now untouched wooded landscape, according to Mize. The church, whose name comes from Greek mythological goddess, once considered to be the ancestral modeler to Gaia is definitely a Greek mythological term, but it is English, so a term that really fit. Mize said in South America, it's Mama, which translates to Mother Earth. That's how I knew it as Mother Earth.
Yeah, the ayahuasca experience during the ceremonies, no more than 10 people will consume ayahuasca at a time. They will be joined by several leaders and other trained help. For roughly 5 hours, those who consume ayahuasca will feel its effects. Dr. Sarah Bliss Matuska, a lecturer of the public health of Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. Yeah,
Gonzaga. Okay, there we go. University has researched psychoactive substances and their effects on the brain since 2005. In March of last year, when Mize spoke about the church's DEA application, she noted how those who have taken ayahuasca describe it as unpleasant. Most people puke. It causes gastrointestinal distress, and people describe ego death, where you sort of lose yourself. I think for some people, that would be really scary, she said at the time. Those powerful effects are why it's so important for plenty of trained people to be present at ceremonies. Anyone considering ayahuasca should consult their physician, especially those with medical issues such as high blood pressure, heart conditions, or mental illness. Besides the stomach issues, other effects of ayahuasca can be challenging, Mize said. The sense that emotions are so much stronger and more deeply felt, whether that be anger or grief or love or happiness, it's extreme. You have to really take the time to dwell on it and go through the entire process, he said. Some ayahuasca ceremonies can be extremely hard experiences. I have had ceremonies where I have been extremely sad and in tears for 6 hours, but I have had others where I felt love so strong it was spilling out of my every being. Members participating in ceremonies will remain on the property for 4 days. They will consume ayahuasca on the first and third days. The second and fourth days are meant for integrating, which is when they will spend time processing their experience with their fellow members in group meetings and on their own. We will always be offering integration circles where people can come and discuss in an open environment where they can dive deeper into a group, he said. Or if they feel like they need to, they can do more solo integration. For members to participate in the ceremony, they must first pass a safety screening from church leaders to ensure they are emotionally ready and that they have the right motivations and that they aren't on medications or have medical conditions that could be complicated with ayahuasca, according to Mize. And that's just smart. I mean, we know that this can be dangerous, so I'm glad they're doing that.
Oh, yeah, and before they may join the church, members must complete preliminary paperwork to have a phone call with Mize that averages about an hour to ensure they are a good fit. But 50 people have become members of the Church of Gaia, they said. Most are based in Washington State, some are in Idaho, but interest is growing, my God. However, much larger the Church of Gaia becomes, Myers promises that procedures will not be often. If we keep growing to 5,000 to 10,000 members, then great. I see that as a beautiful thing, he said. We continue to hold our very strong rule, no more than 10 in ceremony at a time, when we just hold more ceremony. This story was changed on May 23rd. Teddy Rodriguez recently went to Europe, and an earlier version of the story inaccurately listed the countries for which he traveled. Huh.
Wow. That's a pretty cool exemption in the DEA's process. I think that's cool, and that I'm glad these churches are taking advantage of that exemption, right?
Right. I couldn't help but to think, Church of Puppets, where you could take psychedelics and ibogaine and ayahuasca. But then I started thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I'm brave enough to go them extremes to fight them demons.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It is medication time!
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles. Bufo's chosen, making mainstream media news.
Back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year. Movie nights. Spotlights on entertainment. And live on location coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. Check out our webpage at www.noknetwork.com.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyndinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set. One dab, only really need one dab. One dab.
Smoke Signal is a medical dispensary where you can get all your products and needs.
Start vaping a whole bunch. Might just start laying off the blunts. God. Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram. Go and hold it in, feel it in your ribs.
So come and check us out in Tyndinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyndinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at NOKNetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@NOKNetwork.com.
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
And we have another set of stories coming at ya from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. Our next story comes from marijuanamoment.net. And on marijuanamoment.net it says, Nevada Assembly passes resolution urging Congress to reschedule psychedelics and protect supervised adult use of substances. And this is written by Ben Adlin.
Yeah, the Nevada Assembly has amended and advanced a Senate-passed joint resolution calling on Congress to reschedule certain psychedelics, streamlining research and provide protections for people using the substance in compliance with state law. The chamber on the chamber floor on Thursday, lawmakers voted 36-6 to advance the measure. SJR 10 from the Senator Rochelle Nguyen, Democrat, which now returns to the Senate to consider changes made in the Assembly. The resolution cites research demonstrating the therapeutic potential of psychedelics in treatment of serious mental health conditions and calls on the federal government to reschedule psilocybin, DMT, ibogaine, mescaline, and MDMA to a schedule that better reflects the therapeutic value, low potential for abuse, and the safety for use under medical supervision of these compounds. It also points out that there have been federal developments on the issue, including the Food and Drug Administration designation of certain psychedelics as breakthrough therapies, and the research that's being funded to explore the substances at the Department of Defense and U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. The measure urges Congress to increase funding for further research, establish a streamlined process for approving and conducting research with psychedelic compounds, and reschedule psilocybin, DMT, ibogaine, mescaline, and MDMA under the Controlled Substances Act. Further, it calls for the establishment of legal protection against federal prosecution for individuals and entities complying with state law concerning the supervised adult use of psychedelic compounds, and requires states to enter research partnerships with the Attorney General under the Controlled Substances Act to study the public health outcomes of such state programs. Days ahead of the floor passage, Assembly members approved a brief committee amendment that clarified the resolution seeks protection for those using psychedelics, specifically under supervision of a facilitator. Under the change submitted by Nguyen, the proposal now urges Congress to protect individuals and entities complying with state and local law concerning the supervised adult use of psychedelic compounds. That's cool.
It is. That language was in the measure as introduced, but in an earlier amendment had previously moved the word supervised from the text, which the latest amendment adds back in. The new amendment was adopted by members of the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operation and Elections, which advanced the measure on a voice vote during a work session earlier this month. On the Senate floor last month, Nine said the proposal sets forth the argument that certain research and Therapeutic trials have demonstrated promising results for the use of these substances in the treatment of disorders such as traumatic brain injury, post traumatic stress disorder, certain depressive disorders, and other mental health conditions. The measure notes the low abuse potential for classic psychedelics and highlights their safety in therapeutic session settings, she said, adding that SJR-10 expresses Nevada's continued support for expanded research opportunities and urges Congress and the appropriate federal agencies to increase related funding for psychedelic medicine. Prior to the Senate floor vote, a committee adopted amendments proposed by the sponsor named to clarify certain statistics that were referred, also to build language on federal protections to include local protections as well. Last month, meanwhile, a separate Nevada Assembly committee passed a psychedelic pilot program that would allow some patients with certain medical to legally accept substances such as psilocybin, DMT, ibogaine, and mescaline. If enacted, the program would allow the medically supervised use of psychedelics among military, veterans, and first responders with certain mental health conditions. How cool is that shit?
Yeah, that's cool, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Assembly of Health and Human Sciences Committee took public testimony on the bill in March, hearing from reform advocates, veterans and their families, and members of the state psychedelic medicine working group, which late last year called on lawmakers to establish a system for regulated access. Assemblymember Max Carter, a Democrat, the measure's sponsor, was among several Nevada legislators who participated in a recent psychedelic policy summit and expressed optimism that the state could make progress towards legalizing therapeutic use of these substances in the coming year. Carter appeared with Nguyen on the panel hosted by the Nevada Coalition for Psychedelic Medicines. Both lawmakers were members of the state psychedelic medicines working group that in December issued a report calling on the legislature to create a program for regulated access to psychedelic assisted therapy. In 2023, Nguyen sponsored legislation that would have legalized psilocybin and promoted further research into the drug, as well as encouraged studies of MDMA, but this was significantly scaled back in the Senate committee to examine the use of entheogens in medicinal therapeutic and improved wellness, and develop a further plan for regulated access. It ultimately became the vehicle that created the state psychedelics working group. Separately, the state legislature, lawmakers were also weighing a measure that would allow people with past marijuana possession convictions to become foster parents, provided that the amount of cannabis that they were convicted for is now legal under state law. Currently, any conviction for possession, distribution, or use of a controlled substance is disqualifying for what would be foster parents. Wow.
Yeah, that was a good article. I like reading about what Nevada is doing over there because they were leading up to this and didn't get like shit canned and then back up and then shit canned.
Right? I know. It's been a long, drawn out process for a lot of places right now.
Oh yeah. And now that brings us to our last and final article of the evening, and this is off of psychedelicalpha.com. And this Matt Zorn, the government's former adversary, is now its psychedelics czar. Matt Zorn made his name suing federal agencies over cannabis psychedelics policy. Now he's inside the system as Deputy General Counsel at HHS and what appears to be a mandate over psychedelics reform. Here we recount Zorn's path from the thorn in the side of federal government to insider, what we might expect from his in his new role, and how insiders are reacting to the news. And this is editor's note. Paywall on this article has been temporarily lifted. Oh, what does that mean?
Cool. So Matt Zorn, a prominent cannabis and psychedelic-focused attorney who made a name for himself in suing the government, has now joined its ranks in accepting a role as Deputy General Counsel in the Department of Health and Human Services. Immediate officer of the General Counsel, Zorn appears to have quietly assumed the unprecedented position of psychedelic czar in the second Trump administration. Zorn has been a key adversary of governments of both stripes on the drug-related issues, challenging them on matters like allowing research on cannabis for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, preventing tryptamines from being scheduled, and fighting for patients' access to psilocybin under rights to try law. Now he's going inside the tent with what looks like to be a mandate over psychedelic-related matters. Here we recount Zorn's path from the thorn in the side of the federal government to insider, and what we might expect from him in his new role, and how insiders are reacting to the news. Thorn in the side of the government insider. Zorn is no stranger to confronting the U.S. government and its federal agencies on matters broadly relating to drugs. He has worked with researchers like Sue Sisley, his colleague Shane Pennington, to sue the DEA over its effective rejection of her marijuana for post-traumatic stress disorder in veterans study, with Psychedelic Alpha editor-at-large Graham Penechik to lead a successful challenge against the DEA's plan to schedule 5 tryptamines, and held that same agency to task over other matters like access to psilocybin via right to try statute and its flouting of the FOIA's requests. That FOIA-related saga led to the release of a letter from the former Assistant Secretary of the HHS, Rachel Levine, to former DEA head Ann Milgram, that recommended placing marijuana in a Schedule 3. The letter had first been mentioned in an August 2023 Bloomberg article, and in a sign of just how closely Zorn has followed these rescheduling matters, he filed that the FIO request the very same day that the Bloomberg article was published. What's more, is a sign of his presence. He sued HHS in November of 2023 after it failed to produce the letter. Despite being deeply involved in psychedelics and cannabis legal issues, Zorn rejects the label of psychedelic lawyer. Being an effective lawyer is more important than identifying with any particular brand of lawyer, he said. And what's more, whatever one thinks of Zorn, it's hard to argue that he has not been effective, including securing an influential position in government. Wow, that's cool.
It is a psychedelic czar. Zorn now serves as one of the half dozen or so deputy general counsels at HSS's OGC. While the office is technically tasked with providing legal advice across the agency, it has historically been instrumental in defining, defending, and implementing federal health policy, including, for example, the rollout for the Affordable Care Act. There are presently 6 deputy general counsel, according to the OGC's website. Zorn is not yet represented there, but is reflected in an HHS staff directory. Some of Zorn's fellow counsel have clear areas of expertise and interest. Jules Desai, for example, was appointed his role last month as a focus on matters related to drug pricing and reimbursement. Eric Osterhus, meanwhile, played a prominent role in the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic investigation of the origins of the virus, being appointed to his deputy general counsel role at the OGC in March. While the role of the OGC staff might seem quite vanilla, in that it is generally tasked with providing legal advice to HHS, they can wield meaningful influence over the board portfolio of agencies and institute under the department. In the past, deputy general counsels have played important roles in flagship HHS programs, such as Affordable Care Act, for example. What's more, its power then centralized under the Trump administration. In March, the department announced a reorganization of OGC, consolidating many of its regional offices from 10 to 4 and creating a new position, the Chief Counsel for Food Research and Drugs, which is presently occupied by Robert Foster after Hillary Perkins resigned just 2 days on the job. That consolidation echoes smooth in the Trump administration, according to Sidley Austin LLP, which could potentially signal an effort to consolidate and expand his HHOG authority. What's more, the administration has made it clear that it's not particularly interested in the conventional remit of lawyers. There is no reason to believe Zorn's role will be limited to poring over Moreover, Zorn's rule, which had been rumored for months, has been described by the close to the matter of the psychedelic czar, suggesting that his role will focus substantially on that matter. Wow.
Yeah, bullish on chaos, Zorn's vision. Zorn has largely kept shtum, at least publicly this year, but in December of 2024, interview with Psychedelic Alpha editor Josh Hardman, he offered a rare, unfiltered look at his thinking and perhaps his unofficial CV for the role he now holds. And there's a link there to that article. In that discussion, Zorn expresses his excitement around the potential opening that the incoming Trump administration presented, in his opinion. He expressed deep and characteristic frustrations with how the U.S. system of drugs and medical regulation operates. And he said he was excited that someone like RFK Jr. might be willing to ask deeper questions about the system. I do think that we have someone who's a bit of a chaos agent, he said, who is willing to actually peel back the layers and start asking these deeper, more fundamental questions can only be a good thing. Rethinking risk and reward in drug development. When it comes to drug development, the market authorization pathways for new drugs, Zorn enjoys floating those big questions like, are we using the right standards of safety and efficacy? I think there's a really good case that we shouldn't be testing for efficacy or what can be done post-approval, or that there are ways to have medicines on the market in an off-label or no-label way while still testing for efficacy, he said, in an opinion that he shared by other people in Trump's orbit, like Deputy HHS Secretary Jim O'Neill. He also suggested that the level of evidence or the standard to which it is assessed should be commensurate with the urgency of society's needs for new medicines in given disease areas. I think you can make a pretty good argument that requiring safety and efficacy for approval needs to include a third element or simply a balancing test to make test that is more of a risk-benefit type approach, he told us. The benefit in an emergency is tremendous, he continued, drawing parallels to vaccine development where urgency is important. And so the level of evidence that we would require maybe on safety should be high, but put on efficacy, probably not so much. Yeah, safety is paramount. Let's, at least make it safe. Whether it works or not, it's not the question. Make it safe.
He also argued that the reason we don't have FDA-approved psychedelics like MDMA is mostly an economic problem, with the cost of demonstrated efficacy creating issues. At the end of the day, he added it would be more economical to bring these treatments to the market. They could have been brought to the market 10, 20, 30 years ago. Zorn's conviction that the FDA need not be arbiter on efficacy is driven by his belief that given access to online resources like PubMed, the need to have centralized government body review all the evidence is severely diminished. Zorn even suggests that AI will probably do as good of a job as FDA of reviewing these data. Companies would still be incentivized to produce that data, Zorn believes, due to the payers expecting it in order to inform coverage decisions. Still, he says this should be a lot cheaper once medicine is on the market, adding that the real evidence would be more useful in the case of mental health treatments in particular. Despite being popular among those close to the agency, the effort to shift pre-approval efficacy studies to post-marketing monitoring and real-world evidence raises a whole host of questions which are not derived into here. Just one of the facts, without payers on board, the types of patients who might access newly marketed drugs to reimbursement are not representative of the broader patient pool. In case of psychedelics, for example, those early recipients would likely skew toward those of higher socioeconomic status who can pay out of pocket, or various subpopulations such as veterans in case of PTSD, assuming the VA were willing to pilot psychedelic care deliberately. Wow.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath for broad rescheduling. Aside from the drug development and approval front, we also spoke to Zorn last December about the potential for rescheduling or even legalizing psychedelics under the second Trump administration. A lot of folks are talking about it, with RFK Jr. Legalized psychedelics and cannabis, Zorn told us. But he happens to be in the wrong agency for that one, and that would be more on the Attorney General side of things. We wouldn't place any bets on the likelihood of that happening, at least in our December conversation. I think there's every indication that Trump's not going to tolerate people deviating from his position, he said. So it depends on what stance he takes. Zorn also told us that advocates of psychedelic rescheduling should be following marijuana's rescheduling extremely closely, but that might that experience suggest Trump's stance is one of political convenience, publicly supporting marijuana rescheduling in the pre-election period when it appeared to be a vote winner, but demonstrating an apparent waning of political since taking office. Whether Zorn's appointment represents a revigoration of the marijuana rescheduling push is unclear. It is perhaps a surer bet, given his psychedelic Khazar nickname, that Zorn will work to tackle blockers to psychedelic research and market access, at least in the medical model. Whether that will take the form of psychedelic-specific carve-outs or regulatory tweaks, or whether the class of investigational medicines might be instead might instead be beneficiaries of broader reforms like lowering pre-marketing efficacy requirements, such as the need for double-blind trials, also remains unclear.
Destigmatizing psychedelics. I don't even know what that word means, but while Zorn...
Destigmatizing.
Huh?
Destigmatizing.
Oh, that makes more sense. Destigmatizing. Oh, that I don't. While Zorn avoids the trappings of conventional psychedelics evangelists, he was expressed interest in shifting public perception around the class of drugs. In a summer interview, for example, he offered advice to those to destigmatize psychedelics. One thing I've taken about this, talking about this, he told us, rather than trying to bring people to psychedelics or bring psychedelics to them, I think a lot of it's about illustrating that psychedelics have already contributed to our culture. You mentioned the rumored, though perhaps unlikely, role of LSD in Watson and Crick's theorization of the double helix structure of DNA, but also added that there is a less dramatic case for psychedelics too. What about psychedelics helped me with bowling? He said.
Right? An unsung hero, but not without critics. Those in the cannabis advocacy or investor communities appear torn over government insider Zorn. Some are excited given his efforts to keep momentum behind efforts to reschedule marijuana. Others worry that his apparent psychedelic mandate might signal a shift in focus. But the psychedelic field, meanwhile, appears more bullish. A half dozen people that Psychedelic Alpha has spoken with are almost universally excited about Zorn's appointment, which has become a poorly kept secret in recent months. Over the past 6 months, a small group of insiders have worked to get Zorn in the role. Speaking with Psychedelic Alpha's psychedelic researcher and practitioner Joseph Barsuligia, described Zorn as an unsung hero in the cannabis and psychedelic world, pursuing multiple federal agencies to address obstructions in cannabis and psychedelic research. He hopes that Zorn's new role will allow him to influence research via the NIH, NIMH, NIDA, and ARPA-H regulation and approvals via the FDA, and clinical implementation services and education through the newly formed Administration for a Healthy America. Bersuliga told us that as legal counsel focused on this domain, Zorn could help create greater coherence, collaboration, and transparency at the HHS level and become divisions across the developed arc of research, regulatory approvals, and clinical implementation. Love it. Simon Schnapper, partner of JLS Fund, said to us in a response to the news. He commented Zorn's shift from adversary to architect, describing it as a moment where the goals of advocacy, investment, and public benefit align. I think it's a great hire, MAPS founder Rick Doblin told us. While the general tone is optimistic, some express concerns or reservations. Common qualms concern Zorn's apparent interest in reducing pre-marketing efficacy requirements and the potential negative externalities that this might bring, while others express broader worries about the administration lowering its standards or appearing to do so when it comes to psychedelic drug development and approvals. Wow.
Wow, that was a great article.
Absolutely. That's pretty cool. Sometimes you need to create change from the inside, and it sounds like he knows what he's talking about and he knows what he's doing. So let's see what happens.
Right. Well, man, it's a good time for today. And where's my things? Oh, yeah, here we go. thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network and for tuning in to our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you've enjoyed your update today on mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint host, Tara Simpson, and to Bufo Various and Kim Cooper for making this show possible, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesdays. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way out. Good night.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of